Christopher Atkins, it is a joy to see you again.
It's wonderful to see you.
It was Blue Lagoon in 1980 that turned you into a genuine bona fide overnight sensation. Take me back, Chris, to what your life was like before you went to audition.
So I was in high school. I was very big into sports. That's what I wanted to do. I had all these knee operations in high school. Unfortunately, it took me out of sports. And so I was going to go into physical therapy or some sort of sports medicine. That my whole family are doctors, and my sister's a PhD in cellular biology at Yale University up here. My brother's an emergency room doctor in Wellington, New Zealand, of all places.
Wow.
And my mom was a science teacher. So my grandparents were doctors. So anyway, it just runs in the family. So I was going to head that way. And then out of nowhere, I got somebody took some pictures of me and sent me into a modeling agency when I was like 16, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. And from there, I ended up into the Ford modeling agency. And the next thing I know, I was flying places to, for instance, Puerto Rico with all kinds of Phoebe Cates and Lori Loughlin and all kinds of people that kids when we were really young who are now end up in Hollywood, which was really kind of interesting. Being this little kid out in New York, that little circle of us that kept modeling together all ended up in the movie business, which was really kind of cool.
So how from there did you wind up nabbing that role in the Blue Lagoon? How did you wind up in that audition?
It was an open call to Blue Lagoon. So they called me in, they said, do I want to audition for a movie? So I said, yeah, that'd be kind of fun to go in and audition for a movie. How cool would that be? So when the movie comes out, I can tell all my friends, oh yeah, I went in for that movie. I thought that was really, really cool. So I went in for the audition, and the next thing I know is they just kept calling me back. And when I went in, it was at Columbia Pictures in New York City, and just kids were sitting in the hallway that just went on forever. I mean, this was just insane. And I went in and I met with the casting people and did the lines, and they just kept calling me back, which was really flattering, I guess. I didn't know anything at that point in time. And the next thing I know is I didn't hear from them. And that went for a couple of months, and I just completely forgot all about it. But by this time, it was now spring, and I was down. I used to teach sailing at the American Yacht Club in Rye, New York. So I was teaching sailing to little kids. And so now I was back out teaching sailing, and they called me back up again. They said, we haven't found the person. We'd like to see you again. So I said, well, okay. And I went in and auditioned. And the next thing you know is they said, can you come in one more time? And can you bring a blonde curly wig? I said, sure. I got plenty of them in my drawer. I mean, are you kidding me? What do you mean? Can I bring a blonde curly wig? But mom being blonde, she had some ratty old thing, and she gave it to me. And we went into New York City, and they curled this thing up. And Randall Kleiser, who directed the movie, always saw this character as a Greek Adonis. He just saw this curly-haired, blonde, sort of Greek Adonis kid. So that's what they wanted to see this wig on. And I did it with Julie Warner, who ended up being in Doc Hollywood years later with, yes. So anyway, it was kind of fun and it was exciting, and I did that. And then literally 2 days later, they called me up and said I had the part. And I said, no. I said, no. I said, look, it's a $4 million picture. There's 2 people in it. I've never done anything like this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to ruin your movie. And I got to go catch a train because I had to play softball. I was playing with the Ford Modeling Agency softball team. So I had to get into New York City. And he said, no, wait. You can't. I talked to my mom about it. I said, what do I do? And she said, it's very exciting. And it's something that you don't ever have to do again if you don't like it. So taking mom's suggestion, I said, all right, well, let's give it a shot. The next thing I know, they whisked me off 2 days later to California. I met all the heads of Columbia Pictures. Randall sat me down in front of John Travolta, and John Travolta gave me all this advice and about the business and everything, which was really, really sweet. And then 2 days after that, I'm on a plane to Fiji. And I was there for 4.5 months shooting this picture on a deserted island. It was literally a deserted island. There's no picture. I was talking to the first AD. He's now in North Carolina. My kids are in North Carolina. So I saw him and I said, well, Peter and I were talking. He said, Chris, nobody's ever shot a movie like that ever before. And nobody will ever shoot a movie like that ever again. It was just a one-off unique because everybody, and they were all Australians. That movie would have never, ever happened if it wasn't for the Australian crew. It would have never been the movie that it was. And I'm absolutely 100% convinced of that. The Australians made that picture because we lived in tents. They built platforms, wooden platforms, and put a tent on the platform. And that's how we lived for 4 months.
And the Randall you're talking about, of course, and John Travolta, he had just come from directing Grease. Right. And now you find yourself being directed by the great man in the Blue Lagoon. It's interesting, Chris, because when you look up Blue Lagoon, there's a huge history there. It wasn't just the movie that came out in 1980. There was a silent movie version of it. There was a version, I think, in 1949 with Gene Simmons and I think it was Donald Houston. And then there was your version with you and Brooke Shields. Just to go back to when you landed that role and you said, I can't do this now, I don't want to do it. Was it also terrifying? Was there a terror and a dread in you to think, I can't do this, I just simply can't do it?
I've always been an adventurer. I always was one of those people who jumped in and looked back later. And I think that was one of the things that really propelled me to not really have that kind of an issue about it. It was more, I think, just doing something I've never done before, and I really don't know anything about it. And they said, look, we wouldn't have cast you, like I said, if we didn't think you could do it. So that meant a lot to me in that respect. So I figured, all right, well, obviously they think I can do this, so I might as well go give it a shot. And I learned as I went when I was on the island. And I've never seen a camera before. I didn't know what a crew was. I had no idea what wardrobe had been. I had none of that. I'd never been involved in any of that before. So it was all brand new to me. And that was a big risk on their end, but it's too late now. I'm in Fiji on the other side of the world.
And I'm just kind of thinking wardrobe. It was one of those movies that didn't really require an awful lot aside from a couple of old coconut shells.
Right. Yeah. They didn't have a big budget for wardrobe on that movie, I got to admit.
But that movie was groundbreaking in that before then, male nudity on screen was really not such a thing. Sure, we'd seen ladies baring their bits and flashing all sorts of intimates, but when it came to men doing the same, you rarely saw it. And yet you kind of broke the mold in that regard, didn't you?
I didn't know one way or the other. It was just that approaching the nudity on a film and being naked in front of a whole crew and doing love scenes and the whole thing. There's a lot of dynamics that, as you can imagine, that go with that. And Randall, the director, was very open and comforting about that. Really wanted to communicate and really wanted to make me feel as comfortable as possible with doing this nudity. And like I said, it was more of an adventure. Literally, they had designated a beach on the other side of the island as the nude beach. And so the crew and people, and back then, if you remember, in the 80s, all the beaches and things in Australia were all topless. So it wasn't a big deal to be topless and all that for the Australians. So they were really very helpful in that freeing aspect of taking your clothes off. The only difference was that the Fijians of the neighboring islands were very religious. And so we had to be careful about taking our clothes off and things in front of the Fijians. And they came and they worked on the film, which was a whole another story because that had never happened before. So it was, like I said, there was a lot of dynamics of what happens if you get a little aroused and all of that, and how do you deal with that? And because boy, when things like those sort of things happen, how is an actor, how is a person going to react? And then if it becomes so embarrassing that they shut down and you're already, there's millions of dollars on the line. I mean, I understood all of what they were saying. It's not just one of those funny things that, oh my gosh, that's so silly. No, it was a big deal. And I just said, look, you know what? I have no problem. Let's just give it a go and see where it went. And I'll tell you, after that movie, it's hard for me to keep my clothes on. Okay. There's one thing I will rather go to a nude beach than a regular beach any day. And if you want me, I'll be there.
So when you got the script and it said that full frontal was required and you willingly acquiesced to that, how did you tell your mum? Did you say, oh, by the way, mum, just to let you know, what did you say?
I don't even remember saying anything to her about that, but I do remember at the premiere, when she came out of the premiere, she looked at me and she said, well, I hadn't seen that in a long time. Well, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Oh, God, love it.
It was more, it was more anxious about how they would take it, family and friends, after doing it. Because if the movie flopped, for instance, and I never thought of these things at the time, I just did it. But then afterwards, and then, am I embarrassing my family? Am I embarrassing the people, my friends, and did I embarrass myself by doing something? I mean, it's a sort of a big deal, and especially back then, like you said, when there wasn't a lot of male nudity. Here I come to do this film. But fortunately, the film was such a big hit, and I think because of the nudity, it made people want to go see it even more because it was just different.
But Chris, just between us, yes, the loincloth, was it comfortable to wear or not?
Well, let's see. There was the cloth loincloth, and that one was very comfortable. That one was okay. Then they made one literally out of a coconut something, some coconut frond or palm frond or something. That one chafed pretty good. Oh. So yeah, I would have these chafe marks all in here where makeup had to get down there and pat it, cover it all up.
You and Brooke got on well, you had a great dynamic, a fabulous chemistry, and years later you wind up appearing on Suddenly Susan with her, didn't you?
That was a lot of fun. I think it was one of her final episodes or something, and they decided to bring, because everybody after that movie, let me tell you, Craig, I can't tell you how many people wanted to put Brooke and I together in another movie. Everybody says, hey, can you get Brooke to do it? So when that came out, it was really the first time, obviously, and the only time that we've been together and did something like that. I mean, we did Night of 100 Stars and a lot of TV shows and things like that were very big and exciting, but we never worked together in another show, and that was the only other time.
Do you keep in touch from time to time? Do you have communication?
I did for a long time. And one of the things that I always thought was really interesting about Brooke was when I had my kids and she was doing something, we would go and see her, and she was always very open and very wanting us to come and excuse me, and she would always just dote over the kids. And I kept thinking to myself, she really wants to have kids, and I bet she'd be a really good mom. So it was very, very cool that when she finally had the kids of her own, and I just knew that she was going to be a very special mom to those kids, even through the business and everything else. Yeah.
The thing about the Blue Lagoon is, as you said, you got to work with an incredible Aussie cast. And I guess that's where I suppose your love affair with Australia began. You also developed a lifelong friendship with a couple, one part of whom is no longer with us, but that's the great Ron and Valerie Taylor, because they were looking after the underwater sequences for the Blue Lagoon, weren't they? I became really, really dear good friends with Ron and Valerie, as you know, and it was a very sad and heartbreaking when Ron passed, because those two were just icons together.
but Valerie picked it up and just kept going. And she's still a very special woman. And she's battled a heck of a lot of things. I mean, I was there shooting with her when she got bit by a moray eel and her hand is all cut up and everything like this. And she's got a shark tooth embedded in her chin. And I mean, she's had more things happen to her. She battled cancer and she beat that. And I mean, she's one special woman, that's for sure.
You had the great privilege, and I can only imagine it was a pinch yourself moment, to be scuba diving with Valerie Taylor. As you say, you witnessed her being bit by a moray eel. What is it like being underwater with somebody like that who just so gets it?
It's absolutely the most incredible thing you could possibly do. If you are a diver and you love being underwater and the underwater world, to have somebody there who knows it better than anybody else on this planet probably is so amazing. For instance, while we were diving together, all of a sudden she's tapping me and she's handing me gently this giant cuttlefish. And she's holding this cuttlefish and she puts it in my hand like this. And I've got pictures of me with this giant. I mean, she just knows how to talk to to the fish. I mean, she really is a fish whisperer. She just, she will take a sea snake. She taught me how to hold sea snakes. You know, they're 10 times more poisonous than a king cobra. And she's handing me sea snakes. And I mean, it's truly amazing. And a funny story. When Ron was still alive, we had a barbecue at their house. We would, every time I'd come back to Australia, we'd always go to their house and have a barbecue. And this time I had my kids with me and we were having dessert and she served us a pavlova and I love pavlova. We don't have it here. Every time I go there, I have to have a pavlova. I just love a pavlova. So she puts them and she had them in these incredibly beautiful ornate bowls. And I said, Valerie, these bowls are beautiful. And she said, oh, they're Ming Dynasty. Wait, what? She goes, yes, they're Ming Dynasty bowls. I said, Valerie, there's pavlova in these bowls. She goes, I know, but they're bowls. That's what they're for. I said, Valerie, what are you doing? And then she was taking them. And I have a picture somewhere of my daughter holding the Ming Dynasty bowl like this with the pavlova in it. And later she was putting them in the dishwasher. I said, why are you putting them in the dishwasher? She goes, Chris, they've been underwater for 500 years. They can go through the dishwasher. And I went, oh my God, Valerie, you're crazy. But that's them. That's the way they were.
You've gotten to work with some amazing people in your life, like, for instance, the fabulous Linda Gray in Dallas. Tell me how divine it was that you found Linda Gray to work with.
Well, she's a very fun lady. I mean, the whole cast were crazy and they were all old hippies. Okay. So for instance, Larry Hagman, before he got sober, used to sit and direct with a bottle of champagne in his chair, you know, and he always had this pith helmet that had a fan in it because he couldn't stand cigarette smoke. So anybody who was smoking, he would hit the fan and blow it right back in their faces type of thing. And I'll tell you a fun Larry Hagman story. When I first got there, they had me do this big photo shoot. And so I had a pile of clothes that I was carrying and I walk in on the studio to find out where I was going. Excuse me. And Larry comes up and says, hey, welcome to Dallas or whatever, to the studio. And he says, let me take that from you. He took this, I mean, it was super heavy. And Larry Hagman is carrying my clothes to a dressing room and hanging them up for me. And that was, and I'm looking, I go, oh, I Dream of Jeannie, man, that's him.
That's him. That's it.
Yeah, that's him. And he's hanging my clothes up and he's a big, big star. And Linda, I mean, to this day, I can still call Linda and we just laugh and have a great time. And I just absolutely adore her. And I've seen and run into her over the years. And Charlene all the time too. I talk to Charlene. But Linda, a very funny story where we had our very first kiss on screen, right?
You played lovers, didn't you? You were lovers. You were kind of like her toy boy.
Well, yeah, I was chasing her, but they were trying to fix me up with Charlene, right? So we had this scene outside and it was on a dock and it was a beautiful place. And this was our very first kiss on this dock out on this lake in this beautiful area. and everybody's standing there watching. Cast is standing there, and some of the crew, and they're all I'm thinking to myself, well, this is kind of strange that everybody's kind of watching the first kiss. And she was actually probably the very first cougar, because Us Magazine and all these different magazines made a big deal about robbing the cradle and everything. So I think she was the original one.
She was stealing an embryo, Chris, an embryo, not just the cradle.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I got a lot of grief for that one. But so we go for this kiss, okay? We go out and they say action. I go out, I do my thing, and then we get this kiss and we do this wonderful kiss. And they say cut and the whole deal. And she looks at me, she goes, so how was it? And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of a funny question. Why would you? Of course, it was wonderful. It was really, and then all of a sudden, my lips go completely numb. Completely numb. I go, what the hell? What? And everybody who's standing there watching, they all were in it. They knew what was going on. And she had taken that stuff the dentist put on your gums before they shoot the painkiller. And she put this stuff all over her lips and gave the kiss on camera in front of everybody. And I'm drooling at this point in time because I'm totally numb. And they're just laughing and laughing. And that's what Dallas was all about. They were crazy.
She gave you a lignocaine kiss, didn't she?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yes. Crazy woman.
I'm telling you that because she told me that story.
I was like, why are you asking how that was? It was a kiss. It was great. I mean, and now I'm embarrassed. I'm like, this is Linda Gray. I mean, I don't want to say it sucked, It was. Why are you asking this question? Oh.
In 1982, Chris, you made a movie called The Pirate Movie, shot in Australia with Christy McNichol. But that movie has since gone on to become an absolute cult classic. What are your memories of coming to Australia and making this totally crazy movie?
One, I love Australia. Literally, Australia is, I've told you this before, is my second home. I want to get my residency. I want to be able to be there and work there and do some fun things. So at this point in time, I was so excited to go back to Australia and to be able to do this. Now, they had hired a director. I was taking singing lessons, dancing lessons, and fencing lessons all there. So I was going from one place to the next. It was super, super busy. But what happened was that director didn't work out, and then they had to hire Ken Anakin. And so Ken came in, and it was another time. So I literally had to leave and come back because I was there for 6 months shooting that picture. I didn't realize how much of a romp it was until actually he put it all together and saw it. And it didn't do well in the box office, which was a shame because it really had the potential to, but it just, for some reason, it fell flat in the box office. But like you said, it was the most bizarre thing because people started coming up to me all the time and saying, hey, oh, you're that guy from, and I go, yeah, Blue Lagoon. They go, no, the pirate movie. I went, really? And then all of a sudden it went, more people now come after me. I'm on that Cameo thing, and people hit me up on the Cameo and they say, please, can you do a line out of the pirate movie? Can you say, I see you in 1940? Can you, I mean, all of these crazy things from the pirate movie. And as a matter of fact, I did a play in Ohio, at a college in Ohio. They asked me, they wanted a celebrity to come in. They get a celebrity every year to do a play. So I went to do this play, and the theater department had, one of the houses, a house, and they said, okay, we want you to come to the house. We have a surprise for you. I said, okay, fine. So I go to the house, they sit me on a couch, and they said, okay, you stay there. So I'm sitting on this couch at this house on this campus, and out from around the corner, the entire theater department comes out and starts doing the pirate movie. They're dancing the exact same things. They're singing the songs. They're posing exactly as they did in the pirate movie. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what is going on? And I thought, oh, well, that's different. But that's the way it was. It was just really strange. That movie just.
People just love it. I have a great friend who is in the pirate movie with you, Maggie Kirkpatrick.
Oh, I love Maggie.
Tells this fabulous story of the boat sinking in Sydney Harbour somewhere. It was freezing cold and whatever it was. I know you made some great friends doing that movie, didn't you?
Oh, super friends. Blue Lagoon and the pirate movie. To this day, of all the films, I've done over 100 television and movies now. Those two are the two movies that I still keep in contact with people.
Now, I mean, really, you need to be made an honorary Aussie, and we need you back here soon. But I know there's been all the COVID kerfuffle. But in 1985, you married an Aussie, a beautiful model, Lynn Barron, and you had 2 kids together. You told me once about the wild journey, how it was that you two came to meet. Just refresh my memory, please.
Well, let's see. I was out shooting a show for she was a Playmate of the Year. So she was 1984, I believe, Playmate of the Year in Australia. And the funny part about it was when I was shooting the pirate movie, I came back to the old Melbourne where I was staying, and I got a Playboy because I wanted to read the articles.
Of course.
So the sports and stuff they had in there. So yeah. I got the Playboy, and on the cover was Lynn. And then on the inside in the fold out area, it says height, weight, favorite color, favorite movie, Blue Lagoon. And I'm going, oh my gosh, why can't I meet a girl like this? Right. And it was 3 or 4 years later, I'm back in Australia shooting another thing. And she happened to be one of the models in the show that I was shooting. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. It was too many years later and too many Playboys later. And so I didn't put it together until one night when we were all going out to dinner, and she was still getting dressed and everything. And me and the sound guy went to go get the girls to say we're all going out to dinner. And I think we were up in Cairns, and she had her portfolio on the bed. And I said, "Oh, can I look at your book?" And she said, yeah. And so I'm looking through it. And then all of a sudden there was that picture, and I looked at her and I went, "Oh my God, you're that girl." And there she was. And 6 months later, we were married.
Wow.
2 kids, 20 years. It was not too bad.
And you two are still friends, of course.
Yes. She's remarried. She lives in California still, and I'm here in Connecticut, cold Connecticut, but it's starting to get to spring now. So.
But you had 2 fabulous kids together, and I know there are going to be people watching now thinking this can't be right, but you're a granddad.
Yes.
3 grandkids.
3 grandsons. Yep. 3 grandsons. One is going to turn 4 in July. The other one that my daughter has, he's going to turn 4 in September. So cousins are back to back. And then my son's first one is going to turn 9 at the end of April, the end of this month. So,
and you see your grandsons a lot, don't you?
I go to see them as often as I possibly can. They both moved, which was really interesting because they were born and raised in California. I'm a New Yorker. I was born and raised in New York. So all my friends and family and stuff are still East Coast here. And my son, he was a monster baseball player. He was on the Los Angeles All-Star team and all kinds of things. And he got recruited to play and a scholarship to play in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So he went to North Carolina. My daughter met some guy online who one day knocked on the door and said, "I'm coming to take your daughter to," and he was this big giant guy with freaking tattoos all over him. And I went, "Oh my God." And then I said, "I know I'm going to," they drove back across the country, and I thought, "Oh, for sure I'm going to get a call in Wisconsin or something, someplace, Oklahoma, and I'll have to go and get her." But nope, he turned out to be an absolute sweetheart of a guy. And they got married and they have their son. So they moved, and he's in Greensboro. My son's in Charlotte. So they were both in North Carolina out of nowhere. And then my dad died, and mom's dealing with a little memory things. And I said, "What am I doing in California?" So I want to go back east, and I'll just deal with things back east and help mom a little bit and get to see my kids. So I do. I just drive up and down and see them as often as possible.
And anyone who follows you on Instagram, of course, gets the joy of seeing you with your grandkids and you with your son and you with your daughter and all of your wonderful adventures, finding fabulous snakes or fishing. I mean, I really think there needs to be the Christopher Atkins reality show where we just kind of follow you around, because your adventures are quite fabulous.
Yeah, I love a good adventure. That's for sure. I do love a good adventure, but I'm in the middle of working with Painless Television out of Los Angeles on a show that will have a lot of that in it and some paranormal in it. It's a very interesting, different show. So can't say too much about it yet, but that's literally very close right now. So I should find out in the next month.
Lucky Valentine is a movie that I know has been in development for quite some time. People need to understand a movie doesn't just suddenly materialize. It can be decades of blood, sweat, and tears to get something up, as it were. And Lucky Valentine, you're working on. You want to shoot that movie in Australia. And as you've explained it to me before, it's kind of like a reverse Crocodile Dundee. Tell me a little about it.
Well, we're getting very close now, which is nice. But like you said, it's so true. I think Blue Lagoon took 10 years to get off the ground. And
yeah,
you hear this all the time with that. And that's just the unfortunate truth. But it's a really good heart and soul, very funny movie. And it's about a baseball player who is at the end of his game, but he's Hall of Fame, American baseball player, but he's kind of a jerk. No, he's a total jerk, but he's a lovable jerk. And he keeps doing crazy things. And long story short, he ends up, his biggest fan is a little girl in an outback town in Australia who's not doing so well. And he gets suspended. They need him back for playoffs. His agent says, look, we need some good press for you. Your biggest fan is this little girl. This town has rallied around this girl and is entered into a cricket tournament to win the money to try to save this little girl. And there's only 200 some odd people in this little outback opal town. So they send him to Australia, and the Australians just pick this guy apart and just drop him down to earth, right? And it's the little girl who basically teaches him about mortality, because at the end of the day, he's afraid, and that's why he's such a prick. He's afraid of what happens when the lights go out, what happens when there's no crowd anymore. Mm-hmm. And he's right there. And he's afraid. He doesn't, his whole life, he's played baseball. He's done this. And then when it's gone, it's an identity. So it's a very sweet, beautiful film. And that's that I'm working with Resistor Films now with Mark Fermi, and he's got people working on it there in Australia and in India now because of cricket. India is very big with cricket. And so we have some people talking with Sony in India that are very excited about the film. So there's a lot of good heat going on the film right now. So knock on wood, it won't be too long. What we're looking for now is to try to put a director on it.
Yes, and that's the point where you're at. Have you got anybody in mind?
Well, yes, we got a couple of people, but the one that I would like to meet is Rachel Griffiths. Mm-hmm. And I think she would be really terrific. I've seen some of her work. I think it would be a wonderful thing to have a female director come out and do a sports film. I would love to see it, and I think it would attract a lot of attention. And I think she's the right person to be able to do it. But I'd like to get a meeting with her and talk to her about it and see if it's something that is even in her wheelhouse.
Well, that's something that needs to happen. And I got to say, the universe has been pretty good with you. So Rachel, if you're out there listening, here is
Rachel. I want to call you, Rachel.
Yeah, here's the opportunity. Obviously, a fabulous opportunity for some wonderful Australian character actors too.
Oh, for sure. It's a really good, fun, funny film, but it's a heart and soul movie. So it's a family picture, but I think it's very, very commercial. And that's the number one thing for me is it's not so much an award on my shelf as much as butts in a seat to go see the film. That means more to me.
And what about for you in this movie as well? Obviously, as being one of the producers and writers and so forth. What about for you?
There are two things that I haven't done yet in this business. And that one of them is make my own film.
Mm-hmm.
I've done everything for 40 years. I've done everybody else's films and everything, but I have not done my own film. So to check those last two boxes in my career, that's what I'd like to do is from the ground up, one of my own films to make it happen. And so this is one of those. And the other one is to direct. I haven't directed and I'd like to direct. I'd like to direct. So those are the two things that I'm working on. But for this film, I don't need to direct or anything. I want to be the writer and the producer, and that would be fulfilled. That one box was to get that off the ground and see that picture through. And then, as time comes, I'm sure the opportunity will come that I can get a directing job.
What about living in Australia for you, Chris? Is that something that's crossed your mind?
I would love to live in Australia. Australia, like as you know, it has all the things that I like. It has all the adventure. I mean, since the very beginning, when I first got there, it was the last Wild West on the planet. That was Australia, and I love that attitude. And the Australians would just give me so much grief all the time, and I just love the way that they didn't care if you were a movie star or what, you were just one of them, And so, besides the outdoors and the adventure that has there and just the wonderful, beautiful people, it's got everything that I like, that's for sure. So yeah, I would love to come back to Australia.
If you did wind up living in Australia, where do you think would be your ideal destination?
Noosa.
Uh-huh.
I love Noosa. Noosa's very beautiful. My buddy Pete's got a house up there, and it just resonates with me.
You've starred in well over 100 movies and TV series. You write, you want to direct. There's so many layers and levels to Christopher Atkins. Have you ever thought of kind of putting it between two covers?
It just seems like there's so much. Where do you start? So I probably need to find the right person, Craig, to help me put it together, Craig, and do a memoir. Some of it I think would be pretty interesting.
Well, because your life has certainly had the dark and the light, hasn't it? You've had your challenges. I think you're 35 years sober now. Your inspiration is that at that time you spoke about it to help other people. You've come through really tough times, and look at you now.
I think for me in my life, the greatest job that I ever had was being a dad. And I would rather, at that time, I decided I'd like to be a dad more than I wanted to be a drunk, and have the business tear me apart like I saw it do other people. And so that sort of saved my life. And then at the same time, the business is a really creative, fun, interesting, has its own texture to it that I just am attracted to. And I love that creative beauty that it offers. I don't like the struggles with it. That's not fun. Chasing money and trying to make something happen and doing all of that, and then working for people who are hurting other people because of the business, and just that part of it is not fun. But the business is a really special business, and I just want to be able to do that side of it now. That's my goals. But being a granddad is super exciting. I love kids. I just adore going and seeing. I got these VR goggles now, the virtual reality. I got those because Randall did. I did the very first virtual reality, I believe, live action VR movie with Randall.
It was called.
It was called Defrost. It's called Defrost. And I think it's out there now. Shooting it was really fascinating and interesting. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good good people in it and everything. And it was definitely different. So anyway, so I got those, and boy, let me tell you something. Now my son needs a pair because the grandsons couldn't take them off. They were too busy shooting Angry Birds at things. And then the other grandson, my daughter's kid, I mean, he was being chased by dinosaurs. And then I put him underwater with some sharks, and all of a sudden he throws the goggles off and he says, "The shark bit me." I mean, now my daughter has to get a pair. So that's been a lot of fun. But see, that's what it's all about. That's the essence of what really life's all about.
Chris, can I just say this has been a joy catching up with you. It always is. And to think of some of your achievements, am I right that somewhere on your mantelpiece of amazing accolades is even a Razzie Award?
You know what? I did win a Razzie Award, but I never got the award.
What?
I never got it. I got a bunch of things up here on this mantle.
They never sent you the Razzie?
No. Look at this. I got the Blue Lagoon.
Oh my God.
It's an
that was
actual,
like written back in 1906 or something, wasn't it?
I got it. My mom got it for me as a present.
Oh, wow.
Years ago.
Oh, Chris, I love chatting to you. It's great fun. You get yourself back to Australia, lickety split, as they say, pronto, on the double.
Open it up so we can come back.
Ah, the fabulous Christopher Atkins. You see, so much more than just simply that fabulous nude actor in the Blue Lagoon. So if you love that interview and you love those great showbiz legends, then you know what you can do. You hit the subscribe button. It's just down there. You press on that then will give you access to our wonderful archive of all sorts of fabulous legends that I've had the joy of chatting with, but it'll also keep you up to date with our future interviews. So I look forward to seeing you again really soon.